distracted by those awesome people around you. Hey, give me my stuff. What? My stuff. Alright guys, when you're grabbing your final snacks, I'm going to say a word of prayer since we didn't do that down there. So God, thank you for this night. Thank you we can be here. Pray your blessing on this night. Pray you help us focus, and especially for all of us as we talk about the subject of money. That can be a hard issue to talk about and a hard subject to talk about. And it can be something that for some of us is very hard to surrender to you and seek to handle in the way you've called us to it. So I just pray that that would be each and every one of our heart's desires to do that. And that by studying your word together, that would be made more clear to us how we are to approach the topic of money. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, so when I was in high school, I grew to hate money. Maybe not totally, but I did not have a good relationship with money because my family did not have a good relationship with money because my family didn't have much money. So backstory, some of you guys know the story, but through no fault of his own, my dad lost his job when I was in 8th grade. It was actually due to bad management in his company. He had done a great job, and then new managers came in and mishandled it. And there was a dot-com burst that happened in that year as well. And so his company was going under. He lost his job. And the end result of that is he had to go back to teaching after having like a much better career income-wise than that. There were still 5 of us at home, so my mom couldn't go back to work. She had to be mom. And so money all of a sudden through all of my high school years was very, very tight for us. If my parents were fighting, oftentimes there was different things going on, but a lot of times it included the aspect of money. And so for me, money became this symbol of your life stinks because of money. That's why your life stinks, because of money. Because there isn't enough of it. Or because, this company mismanaged their money. And so I grew kind of to hate money. And that attitude transferred slowly from I don't like money to I'm scared of money. I didn't want my story to be like their story. So you know what I started doing in my college years? When it came to money, I just would do the ostrich thing. You know what the ostrich thing is? What does an ostrich do when they're scared? They bury their head in the sand, right? If I can't see the danger, then it's not really there. And I kind of did that. I went into a lot of student loan debt to go to college, but my attitude was like, oh, I'm just not going to think about it. It'll be okay. And that's the same attitude I had about money when Janelle and I got married. And so we get married, and Janelle's like, hey, how much student loan debt do you have? I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, these are coming due soon. Like, your grace period ends, you're going to start paying on these. Like, how much? I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. She's like, no, that's not going to work. So I have one thing to say. Poor Janelle. Poor Janelle. Now, my relationship with money only started to change a number of years later. I got this free book at this conference, and then I didn't even read it because it was about money. I was like, I don't like thinking about money. And so it went on a shelf, and Janelle read it. And she started telling me these stories from this book. She's like, Luke, listen to this story. This couple had more student loan debt than you had, and now they're debt-free, and they're saving for their kids for college. Or listen to this story. This other couple had $100,000 in credit card debt, and they paid it off in 3 years, and now they're living debt-free. And through Janelle, instead of saying change your money, Luke, she was trying to draw me towards a better future for us. And she was sharing some principles out of a book by Dave Ramsey. How many of you guys are familiar with Dave Ramsey and stuff? So he's most famous for his financial peace program. This was actually a different book that he wrote, but has a lot of similar principles in it. And what happened is Janelle shared enough stories with me that I was like, okay, I'm willing to find out more. And so finally, I read the book for myself. I was like, wow, maybe we could change our relationship with money. And so Janelle and I started doing a few things differently. We started doing monthly budget meetings. And as a result of that, we started paying everything extra we could off of my student loan debt that we still had from years earlier. And then years into it, we had a big party because we paid off all our student loans. Actually, David and Teresa came to that party. Yeah, that was a long time ago now. And we started handling money better. So, when I was in high school again, I hated money because I was scared of money. Because for me, up until that point, money was this scary thing. And not having enough really made my life terrible. And I even thought it was a little bit biblical to have the attitude I had. And finally, I came to learn that actually that's not a biblical attitude. There is a verse that talks about money being the root of evil, but it's not money. Let me read these verses to you because sometimes they're misquoted. 1 Timothy 6:6-10 says this: godliness with contentment. So being like Christ plus being content with whatever you have, whether that's a lot or little, that is great gain. Because we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, the basic necessities of life, we will choose to be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For, does it say, for money is a root of all kinds of evil? For the love of money. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Just a couple things, this is important. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. In other words, there's other roots of evil out there, okay? And it's not money that's the root of evil, but the love of money. And so what God used these years through my life and my life experiences to show me is that money itself is not evil, but what it does to your heart can be. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, Paul writes, eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So what do we do with this thing called money? And I want to encourage you to take these verses seriously. See, this is talking about a problem that at least at that point in time I didn't have. I wasn't tempted to become rich. But actually for me, as I look back on my high school experience, I realized that money had control of my life. Not because I was greedy and I wanted more of it, but because I was scared of it. And so it kind of exerted power over me because I was so scared of it and doing it wrong, I let money control me in that way. But money can also control you in this way if you just love it and you want more and more of it. So we're not going to look at all the verses tonight. But if you look at the entire New Testament and kind of build up a theology of money, what does the Bible teach about money and how we handle it? What should we do with it? The long and short of it is that the Bible teaches we are to be surrendered stewards. Say that with me. Say surrendered stewards. Surrendered stewards. Okay, surrender. What does that mean? Open hands, right? Whatever God wants, I'm going to do with it. Surrender. And we're supposed to be stewards. You know what a steward is? Your definition. You guys are smart. All right. I don't know whose hand is up. Both of you go. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
It's like taking care of stuff.
Yep. So taking care of something else. Brian, were you going to add to that?
It's basically just taking care of something that somebody else gave you. That's where it's not yours, but you just.
Right. So it's not yours, but you want to take good care of it, right? See, being a steward means, right? If you're like, hey, look, here's my what would you guys lend me? What would you say? Here's my video game set. I know you don't have video games because you're lame like that. So you can use my console. And I trashed it. Being a good steward? Being a good steward means it's not mine, so I'm going to take extra good care of it because it's someone else's and I want to give it back in good condition. So God says you are a steward of all the gifts I've given you, including the gift of money that I've given you. So your job is to manage it well, to manage it wisely, and to be surrendered as you do that. Manage it wisely, use wisdom, and you are surrendered. That's what you are supposed to do. All right, now here's where this gets dangerous. A lot of middle school and high school students are like, this all sounds great and awesome, but I'm in middle school. I don't have any money. I'm in high school, and I have very little money. So I'll get that money thing figured out when I grow up. That doesn't work, because actually these are the very years where you will get, if you haven't already gotten your first paycheck. How many of you already have gotten a paycheck? You've gotten a paycheck. Okay, awesome, great. About half of you have already gotten a paycheck. The thing is that you need to understand is what you do with money now is the best indicator of what you will do with money later. Here's what I mean. A lot of people say, like, the best place to start is with a tithe. Tithe is 10%. So you give 10% of what you get back to God. Let me ask you a not trick question. Which is easier to give, $1 or $10? Which is easier to give? $1. Which is easier to give, $10 or $100? Which is easier to give, $100 or $1,000? Okay. Here's my point. If your first paycheck is $100, what's 10% of that? $10. If you say, I'll start figuring out money later when I grow up and get a real job, do you really think that whenever that starts happening, you get a paycheck of $1,000 or $2,000, when all along you've been giving $0, do you think you're going to be ready to jump in and start giving $100 out of every 1,000? If you've been giving $0 out of every 10 up until this point. You see what I'm saying? What you do with money now actually is going to shape the kind of person you are and how you handle it. What kind of steward you are. And so I want to encourage you guys to start now. And I want you to understand this. I'm not saying this because I'm a pastor and I get my paycheck from the church, okay? I know there's probably some part of your mind that probably thinks that. All right, here's the thing. Janelle and I, with our kids, we pay them for doing chores. Ad and Anna, Ailish and Jude aren't old enough. We're not doing child slave labor yet. But Ad and Anna can do chores, and then we pay them, and we help them do this practice of, all right, you get 10 quarters for your paycheck for doing your chores this week. And how many quarters are we going to give back to God, kid? Like, 1. Okay. Do I need a quarter from Ad and Anna? Is that going to help the church? Is that going to help my paycheck? No. But our heart is we want to form them and shape them into the kind of people who, they get $1, they give 10 cents back to God, because that's just what you do with the money. And again, there's nothing actually New Testament oriented about the tithe, but it's a good place to start. So, I'm going to pass out some fake money. This is fake. Don't try and spend it. You'll get in trouble. All right, everyone take 2 of these. I want you to take 2 of these, okay? Thanks, Teresa. Oh my gosh. You didn't know coming to youth group could be so profitable.
It's not worth it because it's fake, but it's more money than I feel like I have right now.
We can good old Ben.
Good old Benjamin. Highest denomination nonprofit.
All right, here are 3 categories of things to do with money. Live, that means buy stuff, spend, all the stuff we normally think about doing with money. Live, save, give. And these are like 3 big buckets of all the things you can do with money. You can buy groceries, you can buy Sonic, you can buy a video game, whatever. You can save for the future, or you can give away to the church or other ministries, right? Those are the 3 things you can do. So what I want you to do right now is pretend this actually is $100. So just take one of these for now. We're going to do something else with the other one later, okay? So put one down. And here's what we're going to do. This feels a little funny to do, but this is going to help us get at some numbers, and we're going to share them in our small group later. I want you to rip this in proportion to how do you normally spend money. All right? On average, you have $100. How many of those dollars do you spend on yourself and what you want? How many of that $100 do you save for the future? How many of that $100 do you give? So if you live on most of it, you might do this. Here's my live, here's my save for the future, and here's my giveaway. Okay? Maybe you'll do something like that. So go ahead and do that now. That's safe. Investing is saving. If you're an investor, yes.
Yeah, or if you only spend money on one thing.
Yeah, and if you only do one of these or neither of these, maybe your $100 is whole because you live off all of it and you don't save or give any of it. That's okay. We want this to be an honest experiment, okay?
I already messed up.
All right, you guys good? You ripped it up? All right, I want you to set those aside for a minute, but I also kind of want you to keep in mind how big those pieces were, and I'm going to share some more verses with you, okay? Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. This is Jesus speaking in his most famous sermon. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and. Now, some of you have this verse memorized. Some of you have heard it before. I just want you to try and reset your mind and pretend you're hearing Jesus speak these words for the first time. You've never heard this before. What is the opposite of God? Satan, right? That's what everyone thinks. You cannot serve both God and Satan would be the most natural thing to fill in there, wouldn't it? Isn't that what you would think Jesus would say? You know, Jesus is teaching about these two possible masters that you serve with your life. And he says you cannot serve both God and money. And I think Jesus is saying this because he's so smart and so wise. He said, for the average person, it's not very tempting to serve Satan, right? People aren't like, oh, God or Satan? But God or money? Jesus is saying, for most of us, the biggest threat to God having first place in our life is the power that this can have over our hearts. You can't serve both God and money. And this is one of the reasons I think the New Testament urges so strongly that we be generous with the gifts that God has given us, that we be surrendered stewards. That we give some of what he's given us back to him and his work, because something happens when you get a set of money and you choose to give it away. It's like you're saying, you don't own me, you don't control me. Watch, I'll prove it. And you do that, and it actually does loosen the hold that money could have in your heart whenever you do that, every time you do that. It's like exercising the muscle of not being enslaved by money. All right, question for you, and I totally set you up, so it's okay if you fell for it. How many of you, when you ripped up your $100, the first thing that came to mind was like, all right, yeah, how much do I spend on myself? That was the first thing you were trying to work through. Like, okay, how much do I spend on myself? Okay, I'll work that much off. Like, that's the first thing you were trying to analyze, okay? I mean, the first thing you were like, oh, how much do I save? That's what I'm going to start with. All right, some of you. I mean, you're like, first thing, how much do I give away? Okay. Now, I purposely did it in this order because this is the order that most people spend most of their money in, right? You get a paycheck, you're like, all right, what do I want to spend on myself? This much. All right, that leaves this much left. What do I want to save for the future? I should probably save at least like more than half of it. Okay, what should I give? I guess this is all that's left. Here you go, God. The real trick actually to what we just did is which of these do you consider first? That's what the word priority means. Do you guys know that? It means what you consider first. And the biblical injunction is actually that every time you get a paycheck, you should give first, save second, and then live on the rest. You don't live on what you get, save if you have some extra, and give if you feel really generous and happen to have some extra after that. You should give first. Why? Because we're surrendered stewards. It's not ours. And because every time you give some away, it loosens the hold that money can have on your heart and on your life. So we want to give first, save second, then live on the rest. So with your other $100, here's what I want you to consider. Where do you want to be with money? You can just make it up. Living in a perfect world. Out of your $100, and I want you to consider it in this order this time. How much would you give away? Out of every $100, how much would you give away in your ideal world? And go ahead and rip that much off first. All right, now with what's left, I want you to consider, out of every $100, in an ideal world, how much would I save for the future or invest for retirement or for college? And then what you have remaining is what, obviously, in an ideal world, you would choose to live on, right? You just did the process of elimination. Good job. All right, so here's the question. And I want you to bring, I know it's going to get a little tricky and weird, but I want you to bring both of these piles to small group. And what we want to talk about is, why is there a difference between when you consider it this order versus when you consider it in this order? And how different was the first set from what you would like to be? And what can you do to get a little closer to that? Does that make sense? That's what I want you to talk about small group. You cannot serve both God and money. And we are supposed to be surrendered stewards. Because what we do with money, what happens with the stuff in your wallet, reveals what is happening in your heart. And so the question I want you guys to consider is, what is money doing in your heart? How hard of a hold does it have on your life? How hard of a hold do you want it to have? And how can you soften that? And don't go down the false path of saying, oh, I'm just going to ignore it. That's actually not a solution, because God doesn't call us to ignore money. He calls us to steward it wisely, in a surrendered way. Not to be greedy, but also not to ignore it. So I can say with pride today that Chanel and I are still doing monthly budget meetings. This is this practice that we started in this phase of our life. We have had so many monthly budget meetings, you wouldn't believe it. But it's awesome because every single month we're like, all right, we're going to just give 10% away, and we're also going to do some other things and fund some other things. And I just want to say in closing, I do encourage people to give to their local church. I know some of you guys, your family doesn't go to our church, and that's fine. Give to your local church, whatever that is. And I say that because of this. There are a lot of even non-Christians or atheists who will give to the Red Cross or to Samaritan's Purse and do Operation Christmas Child, right? There are a lot of people who realize that those are good causes. I don't have access to the books at Creekside, so I don't know who gives. But I'd be willing to bet you $100 fake that there are no atheists in Elizabeth who give to Creekside Community Church. My point is this: like, give to good causes. Yes, give to Red Cross, give to these other good causes, but also give to your local church, wherever that is, because no one else will. And because your local church does local ministry. And so support God's work wherever you live. I think it's actually really important. And if you guys don't do that as you grow up, no one will. And that'd be sad. All right. Preaching time is over. Let me pray for you guys and we'll go small group. All right. God, thank you for this time. I thank you so much for how you changed my story. I thank you for giving me a wife that's so patient with me and loving. And God, I pray for all of us here that you would help us honestly assess where we are with money. Does it have a hold of our heart? Or does it have power of us because we're so scared of it and mismanaging it that we just want to run away from it? God, help all of us, every single middle school and high school student here, to choose to be surrendered stewards with the financial gifts you've given them. Help them to give first and save second and then live on the rest. And as they do that over and over again, break the power that money can have in our hearts that can hold us back from you. God, don't let money get in the way between any of us and you, Jesus. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right, we're going to split up for small groups now. So middle school guys downstairs, high school guys downstairs, middle school girls and high school girls up here, or wherever you all do that.
High school girls, we will go downstairs.
better on my parents.
Yeah.